So, welcome back to Third Age Reforged and to the current patch. This isn't a preview for the next patch, and I think that's because this is probably going to be the last replay I do on the current patch 0.91, simply because, you know, the new patch is pretty close, and also because I think most people at this point are pretty tired of 0.91, so I thought I'd sign it out with a large battle on the most iconic of maps, of course, Minas Tirith, and of course this one's got quite a lot to live up to because the last battle I did on Minas Tirith was one of the finest ones that I've actually shown in total. So yeah, we'll go through the army compositions and we'll go, see how this goes for the last time with the old mechanics, I think. Regardless, we'll start off with the defenders, and they've got some units here in the last stand. We've got Char and Glowbox here at the back with the dwarves and Gondor, so we've got some Dragon Slayers of Ered Mithrin. We've also got some Lasarnak nobles, and I'm a little bit surprised actually to find that the Lasarnak nobles are not going to be in the next patch, because they were always one of my favourite looking units in the game, but nonetheless, this might be the last time we ever see them. We also have some Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, we've got some Wardens of the White Tower, some Gondorian Winged Swordsmen, and some Sons of Argonath, so they've got a lot of elite units back here, just providing a buff, well, providing the last stand, and then down here we have some more units, it would appear. If I can find exactly where they are, here we go. So we've got another sort of group of troops here, which are going to be sort of used in the final stand, I would imagine. So we've got some Ironfoot crossbows and some Blacklock engineers, so we've got quite a lot of crossbowmen, so it's going to be difficult for the attackers to advance through all of that. And then Glowbox has also got his Sons of the Fallen, his Guards of Khazad-dûm, his Mithril Guard, and some Ironfoot pikemen, along with his catapult. So the dwarves are holding back quite a lot of theirs, and again, on this sort of final stand sort of area, it is going to get quite dicey for the attackers if they take too many losses on the initial assault. But of course the defenders may have spread themselves too thin by having too many units at the back, so we shall see. So we have Char with his Athelian Rangers and Gondor infantry here on the walls getting ready to receive the attackers, and some Gondor spearmen here. And over here we have some Shielded Fountain Guard, Wardens of Minas Ithil, and some Lasarnak nobles, and some Gondor archers. So it looks like we've also got Glowbox with his Sons of Durin here on the walls, and some Dwarven noblemen, so some elites. Very small units. Well, the unit scaling is on regular, maybe? But yes, the elite unit models are, of course, quite low here. And we also have some Gondorian infantry, some more Gondorian infantry, some Gondor spearmen, and some Gondor spearmen. In fact, I think the unit scaling is on small, which might actually really help the frame rate. And we also have some Athala Rangers of Dale, played by Abaus. And we've got some Dalian marksmen, Dalian spearmen, so Dale I assume are going to be taking this part of the defence entirely. Some Dale Dragon Slayers, some Dalian Earls. Then moving over here we have more Earls, more spearmen, some Sword Masters as well, and some more Earls. Surprised there's no Paladins. Here are the Paladins, and some Sword Masters and more spearmen. But I am surprised there's not more archers from Dale, and it looks like they've put their entire army up on this wall here, so they do need to be careful of catapult fire. But now we shall look at the attacking armies, and of course with the unit scaling on small, and with I think only one Orc army, they're not going to be able to simply push through the defenders like most people tend to in the current patch. We have Noob 4 playing as Khand. He's got 3 units of the Nurad Militia, or Nurad Rice Farmers as they look like with those hats. And we've also got some Nerniag infantry, good archer infantry combination, so they'll be able to put some ranged pressure on early on, and then they'll be able to get into melee later on. And back here we have some Haruze heavy infantry again. I think most of the Khandish units are AP, so that will actually help them out here, as well as these nomadic warriors, which are not, but they will last a little bit longer in melee than the Haruze. And back here we've got a couple of units of Variag warriors, some Nurad militia pushing the ram, and then back here we have the elites. We have some Haruze heavy infantry, well, and the Khandish marauders, which are not elites. But he's also brought 2 units of Brotherhood of the Axe, which are going to be very effective against most of the units they fight against here, and some Brotherhood of the Sword as well. So again, I think he sacrificed some of his army for bringing 2 Brotherhood of the Axe, because the price does increase. But the elite units in this patch are so good, of course, that it can be worth the sacrifice sometimes. Rohan brought 3 Marshals of the Red on the defence once, and nearly 1 based just on that. And then we have R9Z10, who I believe was the one who sent me this replay. It is the green player after all. We have the Southron Pikemen of Harad, of course. Harad going to be, again, pretty interesting to see how they stand up here. Dale will probably be able to do quite a lot of damage to them at range, at least I would say that if they brought more archers, but in melee, Harad do have some tools to make things very uncomfortable for the defenders. The Muhar tribesmen in particular will be able to do some nice close range damage. We've got some dismounted Serpent Guard, of course, just to hold the Harad line together. They've always been important for that. Some Southron pikemen as well, pushing the ram, which is interesting. Well, pushing the siege tower, which is interesting. We've also got this catapult here. We've got the Demons of the Desert, which again, they do have a tendency to be focused down, but for very good reason, because they are very, very powerful. More Muhad Tribesmen, so he's got a good javelin contingent. He's also got lots of pikes with the Beast Tamers and the Southron Pikemen. Southron Pikemen, of course, are AP. And we have the Southron Archers, the Muhad Beast Tamers, and some Haradrim Archers. And then back here he's got the Trollmen. And of course the Trollmen, very, very potent in the current patch. So now we shall move on to the third army, which is the only Orc army on the field, which is Mordor, played by Mithrandir. We have some Uruks pushing up all of the siege towers, as well as some Morannon units. Morannon Halberds, again, could be a good choice here against Gondor. The Uruk Archers as well, just for some range presence. We've got some Olag High, only 5 in the unit. Then we've got some Nazgul, again, only 4 in the unit, which is interesting. It's interesting to see. I don't think I've ever actually done a battle replay with the unit scaling on small, but the frame rate will certainly thank me. More Uruk Archers, a couple of units of Sauron's Will, and some Temple Inquisitors. And I think that's it, other than these 2 units pushing the Ram. We've also got some Morgul Chosen over here. But yeah, the Morannon Heavy Maulers pushing the Ram. And then finally over here we have Rune, played by Skinny. He's got Clan Warriors pushing up his siege towers. Then back here he's got his Golden units, he's got his Flagrim, his 3 units of Gamprim, his Camels Chosen, and his Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen. He's got a Catapult as well, and then over here he's got the Balchoth Sapphire Bladesmen. They are a very potent Javelin unit. Again, this is the current patch, but this is kind of like my final sort of little opinion on these guys, because they are not as deadly, of course, as the Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen, but they are also it's much easier to use them. Like the Dragon's Wrath Crossbow, time and time again, you've seen them not really unload their full potential, whereas these guys, it's much more easy to do that. Balchoth Tribesmen, a couple of units of Clan Crossbowmen, a unit of Narim, and then some Innis Rim, I think, just to prevent any enemy cavalry, but again, there is no enemy cavalry. So now, I have actually sort of watched ahead a little bit on this one, and there will be a little bit of a cut as like the initial part of the battle gets underway. So the assault is now in full swing. The siege towers are coming towards the wall, and one thing that I do notice is the attackers do seem to be quite well coordinated. They're all attacking at once, which is going to be a problem for the defenders, because while on a sort of lower unit scale like this, a faction like the Dwarves especially will be able to really lay down their elite forces to carve through a lot of the low tier units, because there are less of them now. In this sort of situation, though, they have left a lot of their units at the back, which does mean they have left themselves a little bit more open to being overwhelmed right away at the front. Based on the length of the battle, their defences are not going to crumble immediately. But they do still need to be quite careful, because the attackers are clearly going to attack all at once. And I would have suggested maybe the Dale should have been on the other side, because all of their army is down here, and then they could have been in a better position to try and take on Mordor and Rune. As well, because all of Dale's army at the moment will be facing Khand, which at the moment Khand is probably the weakest of the forces on the attacking side, at least with their initial attack. Later on, of course, when their Brotherhood units get involved, things will change a little bit. But for the time being, their first wave is going to be very easy to throw off. I mean, Nurad Militia are not going to be up to much, especially not with the unit scaling being what it is. Meanwhile, if we look over here, it looks like over here is where we're going to see the first of the engagements. And indeed, the Balchoth Tribesmen have forced Char Char's hand, because they were going to throw their Javies in. So the Gondor infantry is going to have to leave its very nicely set up V formation and attack out of the walls into these Uruks. And that in turn is also going to allow the Morannon Halberds to probably get a pretty decent engagement on the Gondor infantry.
Did our foe think he could hide behind them forever?
They do need to get involved in that pretty quickly, however, because the Uruks are going to be forced back by the Gondorian infantrymen. And as we get in closer, again, the Morannon Halberds should be enough to sort of do some decent damage to the Gondor infantry, and especially if some of these other units like Clan Warriors get involved as well. The Balchoth Tribesmen probably don't have the firing arc to effectively hit those Gondor infantry, because of course Javelins have got a sort of flatter firing arc than the Axe Throwers. But as we can see, there are siege towers all over the walls. Very well thought out attack so far. We can see that the V is over here. The Southron Pikemen are coming in first. They aren't going to be able to push their way through here. There are spearmen at the back. There are Gondor infantry supporting them from behind. But the Southron Pikemen, of course, they are AP. As far as their base attack stats goes, they aren't fantastic, of course. But the Gondor spearmen are not going to be able to do enough damage here. So the Gondorians are going to need the infantry. As soon as the infantry comes in, I would imagine that this fight is probably going to turn around, simply because the pike formation will probably start to buckle. I mean, it's already not much for formation, but the length of their pikes is going to come into it less when the Gondorians are sort of squeezing in on them. can see over here there is a fight going on up on this wall here. The dismounted Serpent Guard are losing to a group of Dale's Swordmasters. As you would expect, the Serpent Guard are going to hold their ground decently enough, but ultimately as well the arrow support is really going to destroy these Serpent Guards in their efforts. The Athala Rangers back there. And back here we can see that Harad again are pushing on this front over here, but this one they're not going to be able to do quite so well in with their pikes. The Earls and the Dalian Spearmen together are going to be more than enough to deal with any sort of threats. There's also these Harad Marchers firing in through the gap, trying to do some damage to the Dalian Marksmen. Interesting idea. And then over here we can see that Khan, again the Nurad Militia, already wavering. They were never really going to make too many inroads on this wall over here. Which is why I'm honestly surprised they sent the Nurad Militia in first. They were never really going to do much. Again, Dale have most of their army up here, so if you're going to try and attack up here, you probably need your best units just to try and make a dent. Having said that, over here on sort of Dale's half of the map, things are going pretty well. The Gondorians have managed to turn that around with the mass of that infantry. Obviously the Dwarven elite units they've got down here are easily going to be able to stand up to anything that they get sent their way. The Trollmen might be able to do significantly better than the Serpent Guard, however. I mean, the Sons of Durin have already been bloodied up a little bit by the Serpent Guard, and the Trollmen, of course, are a significantly better unit. So Harad sending up their big guns, and indeed the Sons of Durin, I don't think they're going to have the numbers to withstand a unit of Trollmen. And now we've got Uruks from Mithrandir helping out these Serpent Guard, going to force these Gondor infantrymen out of the way. And the Lasarnak nobles, and this is the issue that the defenders have. They don't really have enough to defend all the walls simply because they've got so many of their forces at the back. The shielded Fountain Guard are still standing in front of this unoccupied siege tower. This siege tower is being moved with the Uruk bodyguard at its helm. Over here the Lasarnak nobles' defeat seems certain, interestingly enough. Oh, I see, it's because of the crossbowmen. So the crossbows are able to fire across the walls into the Gondorians that are defending it. Those spearmen are just getting cut down where they stand. And over here, of course, when no support came for this Gondor infantry, they were always going to get just overwhelmed by the orcs that were waiting outside, hearing the crossbow bolts whiz by overhead. But yes, I think at this point Gondor needs to think about falling back, because this area is lost. And it was always going to be so, because he had to deal with two armies with what is essentially half of his army, more or less, because he was also defending the main gate. I think that Dale had a very thick defence on their side when they didn't really need to. They were asking their ally in Gondor to cover too much of the wall, while they took too little. And as you can see over here, some units actually managed to get in behind the Serpent Guard, trying to go after the Athala Rangers, but they were immediately intercepted by a group of dismounted Earls. The dismounted Earls, of course, multiple HP, so the Serpent Guard, they wouldn't have stood a chance anyway because of the numbers, but anyway, you can see over here that Gondor are actually pushing back against the Harad assault on the main gate. And they do need to actually deal with these pikes fairly quickly, even though victory seems certain for the pikes, apparently. Because, of course, over there, Rune and Mordor's forces continuing to just sort of trickle in. Did the Sons of Durin all die? That would be a surprising result if they all died so quickly. Or are they retreating? No, I think they are all dead. Trollmen are very, very good in the current patch. Of course, they will still be one of Harad's better units in the next patch, but they won't quite be as powerful, simply because Harad are getting another strong unit, which is going to sort of take up the mantle of what the Trollmen are currently, I think. The Skull Crushers of Harad. You can see over there the Shielded Fountain Guard. I think they're trying to get away. Some of them, however, have been trapped, and there's no way out. The Uruk bodyguard are coming forward. So this has actually progressed pretty quickly, quicker than I thought it would, which means I would assume Dale is going to have to pick up the slack and sort of form a defence on the hill that leads up to the town centre. Sort of sawtooth swords, and the Dwarven noblemen getting cut down as well.
The enemy force remains. We must pray they lose their will to fight.
Yes, that would be Gondor, I think. And as we look at the percentage of allies killed is significantly less. So we'll see if this is again, the defensive position that the defenders hold at the top is going to be very difficult for the attackers to break down, simply because the dwarves are going to be so potent out there, but I'm questioning whether or not that's going to be worth it in the end. based on how this initial defence has gone for them. Gondor has been swept aside somewhat easily. Here we have the dismounted Serpent Guard trying to go up against the Lasarnak nobles. Interesting fight, to be honest. Neither one of them seems to be able to gain the upper hand, but I do think as more Serpent Guard trickle in, the already damaged Lasarnak nobles are going to be, you know, the lack of survivability overall is going to hurt them a little bit there. And you can actually see as well that the pikes have managed to hold their ground. And of course Gondor have had to peel off other troops to do other things, which means they were not able to continue the assault, so Harad is going to win the main gate as well.
The cowardly enemy have lost the walls. Send your troops to take the rest of the settlement.
Dale, I'm not sure whether they want to go out here. Yeah, if we look back there, the Haradrim archers are over there, as well as some of Khan's archers. Khan have not committed forward their archers yet, which is going to stand them in good stead later on, I think. Just to put some sort of ranged pressure on the Dwarven defence. You can see that these Nurad militia really not the cream of the crop when it comes to infantry units. Dale have been able to easily deal with them. But of course it doesn't really matter because Dale's army has largely been static here while his allies have died, so it doesn't really matter too much. And as you can see, the Serpent Guard are now getting in and around. The pikemen have managed to force aside all opposition, and these Athala Rangers are getting poked into oblivion. Are there any units left over here? There are still some red spots. There goes the Dalian general. His general was in a unit of Athala Rangers. That's an odd one. You can see there's a couple of shielded Fountain Guards still in here. Only 6 of them though. Well, 5 now. That's interesting. You can see here they are back here amongst a sea of Uruk bodyguard. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened to the rest of the shielded Fountain Guard. They were trying to run away. Maybe they got caught. I think they did, because I didn't see them retreating. We'll soon find out later on in the battle if they've got anything left. But yeah, this initial defence has crumbled under the weight of the assault, and this is not something you often see on Minas Tirith. You often see the vast majority of the battle take place on this sort of lower defence, because it is very difficult to break through if you're the attackers. But yeah, interesting to see that happen. It does of course leave the advantage firmly in the attacker's favour as we move on into the battle. I mean, the balance of power isn't too skewed at the moment, mainly because there are still a lot of units over here. Stuff like the Dalian Paladins, they need to hurry up and sort of retreat, to be honest with you, otherwise their way out is going to be cut off as well as these Southron pikemen continue their march forwards. And again, there's also these Earls, which are sort of performing a secondary line, but they're not doing anything here. And pretty soon they're going to get attacked in the rear by these pikes. They do notice, but too late. I mean, now they're going to be caught. A unit of dismounted Earls later on in the fight could have proved very, very key, because they are a very strong and tough unit. But now they're going to die here, and that's going to be bad for them. Bad for the defenders overall. You can see that more and more troops are sort of pouring in now. How they're going to deal with this defence over here. So let's go and have a look at what the defenders have got set up over here.
We are winning the battle.
Indeed. So we've got some archers, 2 units of Gondor archers, Wardens of Minas Ithil, Athelian Rangers. Most of what's over here is archers. We've got Dale Dragon Slayers as well, Athala Rangers and Dalian Marksmen. I mean, that is a decent archer force, but ultimately, I mean, you can see that they're sort of shooting through the buildings. The buildings offer no cover in several areas of Minas Tirith, so these trollmen are going to get shot up as well. But again, these Dalians over here need to defend their archers, because if they're intent on sort of putting up a sort of kind of defence over here, it's going to be very important for the Dalians to sort of cover them. The Nurad assassins as well, missed them in the army comps because they were hidden, of course. Sort of a Hashari Sindar Blade Master type unit, no hit points but a very high stats all around. There they go. The elite rice farmers have come upon us, and then we see the Serpent Guard over here. Actually, these dismounted Earls have done okay, but again, they're not. Eventually, the pikes are going to wear them down, and now there are also some Serpent Guard coming in here, which will really sort of bring about the end of these Earls. There's still some forces out here, amusingly enough.
Only half our force remains.
Now the AP Haruzai heavy infantry have come forward to try and help deal with what's left of them. Haradrim archers as well that have run out of ammunition. the sheer weight of the attackers at this point may well be too much for the defenders to bear. I mean, Rune have got some clan warriors, a lot of lower tier stuff that they still have available to them, which should stand them in pretty good stead moving forwards. Dale have now repositioned their forces to engage this attack. The Dale Swordmasters and the Dalian Paladins. Again, Uruks are not going to be able to do much against that combination. But they have also, well, they've left this unit of Dalian Paladins down here to cover the other angle. And I'm not sure the Dalian Paladins would do well against the Trollmen and the Nurad Assassins. Ultimately, it's been a case of the defenders have not committed enough so far. If you don't fully commit to a situation, you should just not do it at all, most of the time. And this is one of those times. Like, I would definitely have suggested if the defenders were not eager on sort of defending the entirety of the wall, maybe what they could have done is just not defended this wall at all and sort of defended the gate and sort of put a real strong point of your defence over here. And then sort of defended this entire wall with Dale. Because that would have concentrated your forces a little bit more. And as defenders, that's usually what you want. If you get spread out too thin, the attackers are able to just sort of pick you apart piece by piece. And unfortunately for the initial defence, that is what has happened. Of course, looking at the rear defence, that Dwarven force is going to be very difficult for the attackers to break down, and they have no choice but to attack them head on. Because that's how Minas Tirith works. And it's going to be a constant uphill battle. But have they... I think the initial defence needed to get a few more kills in order to make the defenders feel a little bit more comfortable about their choice of tactics here. Meanwhile, you can see over here. What is going on? Where did those Trollmen go, I wonder? Yeah, these Dalian Paladins are going to get engaged, it looks like, by a combination of Pikes, Serpent Guard, and the Nurad Assassins. Nurad Assassins with their... What are those... I'm unfamiliar with what that weapon is called. That sort of sickle. I know it has an actual name, but I don't know what it is. I think the Ninjato is the sword. But yes, these Dalian Paladin victory is a certainty, amazingly enough. Again, a few more units and they would be able to get crushed. You can actually see the Serpent Guard has sort of gone right around. The Trollmen have managed to sort of sneak around the defence, and that was what it was. So the Dalian Paladins... they've just been completely circumvented. And the Trollmen... victory seems certain for a lot of these units, mainly because they have so many, but the Trollmen are going to be able to get a lot of kills. These Dalian Paladins have turned around, and again, now the defence is completely disorganised, and seeing a disorganised defence is what you really want as the attackers, because then of course you can just sort of flood your men forwards, find the gaps. And yeah, I would say that the defenders at the moment, they haven't really managed to get their ducks in a row, as the saying goes. And there we can see Mithrandir sending up some Moranon heavy maulers, that AP damage. And the Dale Swordmasters still holding pretty firm, to be fair. But the Halberds, Nerniag infantry as well. I do like them. Again, I think these guys are just going to be called the Nurad infantry in the next patch, but I like the designs of their shields. Also, just in general, having a sort of a bow infantry hybrid, I think in the next patch is going to be a real boon for Khan, who in an open field are going to be very difficult to beat. And we have the Dalian Paladins trying their best, but they're also completely scattered everywhere. And the Uruk bodyguard are no slouches in melee.
We are winning the battle.
Indeed you are. See here the Trollmen sort of slowly killing their way through these lower tier units. More and more men for the defenders getting cut down. What's this over here? Dalian marksmen? Are they out of ammunition? They've got their bows out still. Those Thala Rangers, what are they going to do, I wonder? They're going to try and get some point blank shots. They're reloading now. They need to be careful though. The Trollmen are going to get through this defence fairly quickly, I would imagine. Trying to shoot and support the Dale Swordmasters. What's going on over here? Oh yeah, the Dale Paladins. To be fair, the Nurad Assassins, they are quite lightweight in terms of what they can offer you as a unit, but they have still done a significant amount of damage to the Dalian Paladins, and ultimately they were just used as the distraction. And the Dalian Paladins as well, they're not going to be too efficient against the Nurad Assassins, because they are of course a lightly armoured high melee defence unit, when the Dalian Paladins prefer facing off against armoured units with those giant maces. There are also some clan warriors coming in, just keeping these Dalian paladins occupied as this sort of flanking force continues to attack, although these Uruk bodyguard have started to fall in the face of the superior AP damage of the Dale paladins. The Haradrim archers probably won't add too much to the melee, but again it's more units that the defenders are going to have to deal with before they can reorganise their defence. What is going on here as well? The AP pike should probably start to deal with this as well. These Southern archers, I think they still have ammunition. No, they don't. They have their blades out. So they will need to be committed to melee fairly soon. This is a very wacky and weird defence so far. Southern archers, we've got some Morannon heavy maulers coming forward. I think some maulers were already in this fight. They were. Defeat seems certain. This one unit of Dale Swordmasters has managed to hold back a huge amount of Mordor's forces. And again, this just goes to show that on a lower unit scale, the elite units become very potent. Anything with hit points becomes extremely potent. They actually need to send some...
The enemy are badly bloodied. They have lost half their men.
That would be Dale, I imagine. But they need to send up some reinforcements, I think, just to make sure that these Dale Swordmasters get defeated. And even if they don't, to be honest with you, these Dalian Paladins have managed to sort of throw off the middle part of this flanking attack. The Trollmen of Harad have done a lot of damage, but ultimately will that prove to be... It was mostly on lower tier like stuff though, so like sort of Dalian spears, which aren't really low tier but lower, and then Gondor archers and now Athelian rangers. I mean, they have done a lot of damage, to be fair. That's a lot of men that the defenders have lost. But ultimately these Trollmen have now turned around, try and do some damage to this Dalian Paladin unit, because the Haradrim archers are really not going to be able to do that. Meanwhile, got some Nurag militia over here.
The foe fights with horns made of clay. We are winning the battle.
And the Dalian Paladins' victory seems certain. Still fighting strong. So the Dalian Paladins have been the real saving grace of this area's defence so far, because without them it would have crumbled pretty quickly, as well as these Dale Swordmasters, of course. But now the Swordmasters are starting to really run out of steam. There's only 13 of them left, and more forces from Harad are being committed forward, which should probably be the end of Dale's infantry. And as soon as they run out of infantry, of course, that means the squishier archers in behind are going to be having to retreat or stand and fight. I mean, the Wardens of Minas Ithil, they were the best arch unit, but they have been focused down hard. There's only 5 of them remaining. If we look over here, the Dalian Paladins, the Trollmen have been defeated by a combination of them and the Athelian Rangers. Indeed you are. These Dalian Paladins are still fighting strong though. Victory still seems certain for them. A combination of the Southron pikemen and clan warriors.
In time our foe will surely see this and lose heart.
Perhaps. The clan crossbows are still firing as well. The crossbows are probably what's done the majority of the damage to the multiple HP Wardens of Minas Ithil. But the crossbows have also now not got a lot of men left, which does mean, of course, you can't be using them against the dwarves. You're going to have to rely on Rune's and Harad's javelins, which are still going to be a very daunting prospect for the dwarves to face down. And then we've got more Nerniag infantry coming forward. Just having a look at all of these forces back here. They've got a catapult as well. That cavalry is not really going to be too useful unless you want to try and push them through the dwarven lines, which is always a bit of a risky proposition. Got some more heavy maulers coming forward. These Athelian Rangers have actually been sent forward to hold the line now with the Dale Swordmaster, so the heavy maulers are going to be needed. And here they come with their large serrated two-handed axes. What's going on over here? So again, it's a grind at this point, the grind of trying to destroy Dale's elite forces with the lower tier units, and I can see why, because they will want to save their elite units for battle against the dwarves, and the Athala Rangers now finding themselves the target of archer fire. Again, the Athelian Rangers, they've done very well for themselves, to be fair. They stood up to Trollmen in melee, so the fact that they're falling by the wayside now doesn't surprise me too much. Firing into this blob of pikemen. And now here comes a lot of Haruze heavy infantry and clan warriors, so this is going to be, I think, a push to try and push through what they have already with their sort of lower tier units. Of course, leading the way with the AP Haruze, following them up with the clan warriors, who are also unshielded, I believe. So now this defense over here is looking a little bit more precarious. They do have a unit of Dalian Paladins. They managed to retreat back here. I would probably just send them back to the town centre, to be fair. This defence over here has managed to hold off more than I gave it credit for initially, because it was mainly made up of archers, and I thought that the attackers would be able to sweep aside them in melee pretty quickly, but I was wrong. But now here comes a larger attacking force, headed up by the Haruze, with the Moran on. Actually, the clan warriors stopped their advance, which I'm a little bit surprised about. Again, pushing through these Athala ranges, preventing these units from shooting as much as you possibly can. Those Dalian marksmen are retreating. Looks like the Gondor archers are going to retreat as well. And here go the Athala rangers, the last stand. Not enough of them to stand up to so many Haruze. Again with the very nicely designed shields. What's going on over here? It would appear that the Dalian Paladins, they have routed, they're broken, and finally victory on this flank for the attackers. And again, the Athala Rangers also routing and broken. So what are the defenders going to do? Are they going to keep those Dalian Paladins there to try and allow those archers to escape? I wonder. We shall see. If not, then it will definitely be a case of making a cut and waiting for the attacking armies to get into position to start laying an assault down on the dwarves. Yeah, the Dalian Paladins are going to leave. So, with that, the initial defence has pretty handily got in favour of the attackers. They've still got a lot left. I'm looking at the percentage of kills, yeah. We shall see if the Dwarven sort of resilience can see them through, because I am, of course, going to make a cut until we arrive at this defensive position over here. So, I will see you there. Well, these guys are being optimistic going into this shield wall. There's also some Dalian Paladins in here now, so they did turn around. They didn't retreat all the way to the town centre. And they are routing and broken. And now we can see more clan warriors being sent forward, so these guys are being sent to their death, because look at this. This is a nasty defensive position that they've got set up here. Again, nothing short of the elite units from the attackers would be able to break through this shield wall here. But of course, if they send forward their elite units, they're going to get savaged by the Dwarven crossbows, the Dale Dragon Slayers, and the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, and the catapults. I mean, now I think that some of the... I mean, they are going to need to put some sort of fire onto this force as it approaches, but ultimately in melee, the defenders are going to be able to hold here. This is an interesting place for a battle on Minas Tirith, sort of in the middle of the layers. Very good position that Glowbox has taken up with his army, though. And of course, Mithril Guard, Guards of Khazad-dûm, Sons of the Fallen. 3 units which are not going to go down easily. And of course, they are backed up by Ironfoot Pikemen and Dalian Paladins, albeit slightly bloodied up Dalian Paladins. There's a lot of forces coming forward. Uruk Archers as well. Well, that was brutal. My word. Yep, those Uruk Archers are broken. So are the Clan Warriors. This is a real conundrum for the defenders, because it's not like they can easily shoot the Dwarven Catapult either, because of the positioning of this tunnel. Those Clan Warriors are also just sort of stood there and routing, and again, this attack was also thrown off with consummate ease by the Dwarven defensive line. Glowbox, of course, is one of the better players that you could come up against. So he's definitely constructed his line very well here. Again, it's not. I'd say that the catapult has probably made its point at this point. You can probably pretty safely allow these guys to advance into position and then continue your firing when more of the units at the back come into play. That in itself has already brought the percentages back in a little bit more, and now the initial attacking line is starting to rout and break off. Again, this is something that you do have to bear in mind with the dwarves, though. They do tend to push back the enemies that they're fighting, and that does mean that they've pushed back away from the pike support that they had. But again, it's against lower tier crap, so it doesn't really matter. But as soon as it starts becoming things like Carmel's chosen Brotherhood of the Axe that they're fighting, it will matter a little bit more. How will the attackers deal with this? Again, the Mithril Guard sort of reforming their shield wall. The Guards of Khazad-dûm. They've taken a few losses, I wonder? No. Well, they might have taken one loss. Provided the unit sizes are the same. Are the attackers sending forward more units? They are. They're going to try and get their Loknar Rim into position, I think. And immediately they're going to be shot by the crossbows, which is going to leave their unit in ruins. You can see just being eviscerated immediately. They're trying to go for the Dwarven catapult with fire arrows. And the catapult crew is taking losses. This is where the lower unit scaling might actually count against the defenders. As we look through the tunnel there, the Nar Rim, however, there are also some Temple Guard back there, significantly stronger archer units. Meanwhile, these Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, the Guards of Khazad-dûm, are sort of advancing forward all on their lonesome, which is a little bit more of a problem, especially seeing as there are pikes and such here. They'll be taking a bit more damage than they would want to be. Some Gondor infantry and Lasarnak nobles are following and helping them, but those Rousing Clan warriors are still just frozen in place. The Temple Guard has also taken a decent amount of losses. The catapult will survive this day. Mithril Guard pulling back. Those Uruk archers are routing off. Haruze heavy infantry being sent forward. Again, the Haruze might be AP, but they are still a lower tier unit, so the dwarves are ultimately going to squash them. Actually, maybe the Haruze are trying to sort of... Well, actually, they've sent forward Nerniag infantry, so the attackers are desperate to try and use their archers on this line, which I don't blame them for. But ultimately, even if they deal with the catapult, I would argue that the crossbows are still just as much of a threat to them. So ultimately, the skirmish is not really going to come into it too much here. Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, Guards of Khazad-dûm. I'm going to keep saying that now because of the faction that is almost upon us. Let's have a little look at what the defenders are actually doing as we go through the tunnel. Defenders, the attackers. So they've got some Variag warriors ready to come in, but you can see over here the Temple Guard have been scythed down by the crossbow fire. Look at all of these dead bodies. All of this back here is because of the crossbow fire. And the Nerniag infantry, of course, as well. No match for the crossbow fire. So they've got some Haruze. What can they send in? I mean, the Haruze and the Variag warriors would be the logical next step, because they can probably afford to lose them. They're going to try and send in a catapult of their own. I would be very, very cautious about that. If you put your catapult over here, you might be able to get some sort of fire onto the Dwarven line, but also the crossbows are going to be able to really focus it down. The catapult might be the sort of thing you're going to have to save for the end. The assault on the town centre, which is still yet to come, of course, because here come the routing attacking units, rather. Gondor still have all of their elites back at the town centre, so stuff like the Sons of Argonath and the Wardens of the White Tower that they're going to need to force their way through. And victory seems certain again. Southron Archer's going to be no match. What was that? It wasn't the Dwarven catapult, so was it the... What are they doing? Are they sort of trying to auto-target onto the Dwarven line? Because that's just going to end up with them shooting at the cliff. Yeah. Alas, that's not going to work. Oh, hello. The catapult can go through this thing. Well, that's very bad for the attackers. The attackers need to get moving very quickly now. Unfortunately for them, however, they're going for the crossbows, and while this cliff here is completely see-through, this wall here is not. And the attacking catapult is hitting that wall. Which is a shame, because they could actually hit that Dwarven defensive line. Suddenly the attackers are quite meek after that very aggressive opening assault. Now that is a lethal hit on the Dwarven defensive line. A real taste of their own medicine. That was a critical hit. Getting a catapult and a ton of the Dwarven defensive units. One of the attacking catapults has also been destroyed now. It's a lot of routing units there. I'm having to watch this battle from within the wall, which is amusing. That hit the wreckage of the catapult they had already destroyed. Glowbox has now taken off the fire ammunition to make their catapult a little bit more accurate. They do still have another one though, from Rune. Honestly, the defenders can scarcely afford more losses. And that is a lethal hit as well. And I think at this point the dwarves know it. Again, with the quirks of the map, I suppose, have sort of stopped this. I assume that this cliff was solid, but it is not. And that ultimately means that this defence was probably not worth it in the end. And all of those Dwarven units should probably have been down on the bottom layer, because this in itself means that if the attackers can now just sit back and skirmish if they so desire, because they have 2 catapults at their disposal. Again, another decent hit on those pikes. That's still a lot of crossbows to go through, but without the Dwarven elite infantry to hold the line, I don't think the defenders are going to be able to pull this one out. We shall see, as we sort of watch from our position inside the rock. The Muhad tribesmen coming forward. I think they're going to try and get into a position to throw their javelins as some of these more elite units come forward. Again, the dwarves are sort of going off to the side, trying to hide behind the buildings at this point. Guards of Khazad-dûm 26. Mithril Guard 26. Taking some losses there. I think it was mainly the pikes though that took the brunt of that. Catapult I think is going to reposition probably over to here. Make it very difficult for the dwarves to hide then. In fact, I don't think they would be able to hide behind something that was solid. The crossbows are also firing the crossbows now with the knowledge that this is completely see-through. They will be able to lay down the hurt even at this distance, which is still going to be very, very tough on the attackers. The artillery was only one part of the attackers' woes here. This Nerniag infantry able to get an angle onto this catapult. You can see down here they're able to sort of use the terrain as makeshift cover and able to fire into that catapult crew, and eventually if that's an archer unit with full ammunition, that catapult will be destroyed. At least the crew will. Some more Lasanak nobles from Char Char. There goes another catapult. 10 Morgul Chosen coming forward. If we have a look at the melee engagement over here, we are now well beyond the halfway point of this battle. You can see that the Dalian Paladins and the Gondor Archers trying to hold this tunnel again. This melee engagement is kind of secondary to the skirmish cat and mouse that's going on. And it does look like the attackers are going to be able to get the better of this. Again, there's some Lasanak nobles coming here to sort of shore up the line. The Muhad tribesmen, do they have an angle? If they do, then the Lasanak nobles are going to have a very bad day indeed. I think sensing that, Char Char is going to try and get his nobles as close to the melee as they can, successfully. I don't think the javelins will have an angle on that. And now the high damage Lasanak nobles and Dalian paladins are what is holding the line. And we have some Baltroth tribesmen as well. The Muhad tribesmen are pulling back. Nerniag infantry as well. The Haradrim catapult has been completely destroyed. Where is the Dwarven catapult crew though? Did he retreat them? I would assume they're not all dead. Maybe they are though. Did he put them in here? It's hard to tell. There could be banner carriers, there could be all sorts. I think there's a catapult crewman in there. I don't know. But yes, this melee force is actually quite potent in terms of the amount of AP damage it can do. So at this point, if I were the attackers, I would send in some more melee troops to engage them, because you are going to need to sort of wear them down from the front. It's one of the It's one of the downsides of attacking on Minas Tirith, is when it gets to the sort of later stages, you have to attack the enemy from the front where they want you to attack from. It's one of the reasons why being outnumbered on Minas Tirith is usually what you will see, rather than forces of equal strength. The Muhad tribes managing to get a volley off, getting a few kills, not too many though. Haruze heavy infantry are coming forward. A couple more Lasarnak nobles fall to the javelins. Again, the Haruze are slightly lower tier. They are still AP though, so they will likely do a pretty decent job against the Lasarnak nobles. As you can see, there are also halberdiers coming in now, so the attack is starting to lay on the pressure. And then back there you can see the Nerniag infantry as well. It's been quite the strange one. I've never experienced a battle on Minas Tirith quite like this one. The Lasarnak noble victory seems certain, interestingly enough. Again, I think that's because of the crossbow support firing into this blob back here. Getting a few more kills every time it lets loose a volley of bolts. Let's have a look. He still has... Oh, those Dalian marksmen, I should say, seem to have run out of ammo because they have pulled out their axes. There is still this Dwarven elite infantry over here. It looks like actually the defenders have decided to sort of move their forces down off the town centre, other than these Dragon Slayers and a couple of units from Dale. Interesting. Gondor is going to sort of be just in behind here with the Sons of Argonath, the Winged Swordsmen, and the Wardens of the White Tower. There are also these Black Block Engineers. Again, the Black Block Engineers, because they have like very limited ammunition, they are actually kind of the worst crossbows in the game at the moment, simply because of that. They are also very good infantry units, though, of course, but even so, hopefully in the next patch they will be much more deserving of their price. You can see that we've got more attacking archers coming forward. The battle for the tunnel well underway. Dalian marksmen coming forward to try and shore up the line. It's odd to see their old unit model now that they've been given their more detailed unit model in the patch preview. So this will be the last time that we see some of the old unit models as well. Albeit that's only a few units. It only applies to a few units here. The Morannon units, though, their unit model will still be present, but only as the upgraded Uruks. So this will probably be the last time that I showed them Mordor Morannon halberds. And they are getting cut down by crossbow fire and shock infantry. There are still these Olag High. Their usefulness in this situation is probably quite limited. They'll probably get cut down very quickly by infantry units that are left. Early on in Minas Tirith, if you can force your way through a gap with trolls, that's generally what you want to be doing. Oof. Trying to go for those crossbows, is he? Managed to get a single kill there. And the Dwarven catapult crew is back. And with their first shot, they managed to take out one of the runic catapults. Catapult needs to get some counterfire. They need to destroy that catapult crew if they can help it. The Athala Rangers providing a human shield for the catapult crew. Something you often see. There are also those guards of Khazad-dûm doing the same. Although the guards of Khazad-dûm's presence will probably draw the attention of the runic catapult as well. So it might turn out to be a bad move. Here we go. Yeah, they are. They're going to try and target the catapult crew and the guards of Khazad-dûm. Several misses so far, though. Siege weaponry is always a bit of a roll of the dice. It could be completely useless, but it could also win you the battle all on its own. Some Nerniag infantry that's out of ammunition coming forward to the front line. There goes one of the defensive catapults. Only one left now and only 7 catapult crew. Gonna try and get another shot off, which they will be able to, I think. Oh, they need to hurry. Oh, a bit of a weak shot, that one. And they're still taking a lot of ranged fire, and I think that the dwarves have kind of abandoned their catapult at this point. The guards of Khazad-dûm were forced to retreat because of the catapult's attentions. Although they are wasting quite a lot of arrow fire and catapult shots on this one catapult, which has largely already done its damage. Meanwhile, this melee infantry engagement is still going on. It's largely unchanged. The Dalian Paladins, there is only one of them left, however. The Sarnak nobles, in terms of position, it may not have changed, but ultimately the defenders are starting to run out of steam over here. The Mordor Moran halberds ultimately able to pull this one out, it looks like, with the support of the lower tier Khandish infantry. They still have to weather the crossbow fire that's going to come their way. Amusingly, the catapult is still alive. Southron archers trying to fire at what, I don't quite know. Some Blacklock engineers have died. Those Ironfoot crossbows, are they out of ammunition? Nope, they still have ammo. So this catapult is going to get into a pretty nasty position if he positions it here as we go through the non-existent rock. I mean, he does need to be quite careful because these Dalian marksmen won't hold for too much longer against the pressure they're under. But a good hit on this blob of infantry would be a good way to sign that catapult's contributions to the defence off. They have been noticed, however. And they're also doing that thing that catapults are wont to do, where they sort of move in place for a long time before they make up their mind what to do, and the Balchoth tribesmen are throwing their javelins at them. So the catapult crew is probably not long for this world. It was a good idea, but ultimately the artillery AI has always been garbage in Medieval 2. They take your orders as more of a suggestion than an order. 2 units of Temple Inquisitors are coming forward from Mithrandir. I mean, that's definitely going to be enough to force this defence out the way, but it is also going to draw what I would imagine to be the full attention of the Dwarven crossbow line. And yeah, they need to save these Temple Inquisitors. Yeah, run away. Ooh, too late though, really. I mean, they've already... Or was it 2 units? Maybe it was just the 1 unit. It looked like 2 when they got bisected by the catapult. There are only 27 of them remaining. A clutch of them was destroyed. The catapult crew is still alive. These Ironfoot crossbows, I think they are now out of ammo. They've pulled out their axes. And they're content to go into melee over here, because again, there aren't really much in the way of elite forces over here. The Nerniag infantry will probably fall, well, it will be an interesting fight, because the Dwarven Ironfoot crossbows are, of course, pretty decent in melee. AP as well, not that that would help them too much against Khand. Just 2 Balchoth tribesmen remain. Catapult, they're surfing. Surfing behind the catapult. And here come the Ironfoot crossbows again. Rear guard action, trying to bleed the attackers of yet more of their troops. This has turned into a rather tense encounter. Let's have a look down here, shall we? Again, the attackers still have got a lot of troops left though. It's going to be quite the task. And at this point, I think I was going to actually move this up to ×2 speed, because this is really the only engagement that's happening, and it's a slow grind of a fight here between sort of skirmishes that are out of ammunition. The ultimate wet noodle fight, which is odd. You know, usually the current patch, I think mainly this is down to the fact that of the unit scaling, that this has worked out a little bit differently than stuff on the current patch would usually work out, simply because attacks would usually be like, yes, we'll group up all our forces and we'll force our way through with sheer mass, and that will win us the battle, and most of the time that is true, because of course in the next patch coming up, Shield Wall is largely going to be spearmen only. So it's going to be much more difficult for you to just put your forces in a big ball and force your way through the lines. The Black Watch Legion and the Black Legion of Barad-dûr will still have that ability, but they're only individual units, and of course they won't be quite as durable as they once were, so you've got to be very careful when you do it, otherwise it will be wasted. We can see that the Sauron's will have been committed forward to try and finally bring about the end of this brave defence that the defenders made in this tunnel. but ultimately Dwarven Ironfoot crossbows are not going to be able to defeat Sauron's will in melee. Oh, hello. Hang on a moment. The runic catapult is firing. And there's still all that Dwarven elite infantry in that little nook over there. The Dwarven catapult has come back. The runic catapult crew. Did the runic catapult run out of ammunition? It seems like they're charging into melee. Oh, we're still on ×2 speed, but yes, finally. Victory for the attackers here in the tunnel, much more costly for them than the initial defense at the wall. Now how will they handle the next conundrum, which is all of these crossbows? We have also the Wardens of the White Tower, the Winged Swordsmen. The Sons of Argonath are coming down here, presumably to join up with the Dwarven elite infantry. So that's yet another strong unit that the attackers are going to have to try and deal with. It's largely going to come down to the crossbows and how much damage they can do, though, because the attackers have yet to use most of their really elite infantry. So stuff like their Brotherhood of the Axe, the Temple Inquisitors, despite that bit of damage they took, Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen, Carmel's Chosen. With that, in addition to all of the numbers they still have, it's going to be very difficult for the defenders to pull this one out. And as we can see, a catapult crew is not really going to do much against Mithril Guard. That's a bit like putting the heavyweight boxing champion of the world in against my Nan. And then we have the Sauron's Will coming forward. A little bit more like it, but they are going to need support if they're going to go up against Sons of Argonath and Mithril Guard. A single unit of them is not going to be sufficient here. They will get butchered pretty quickly, actually. They are AP, but again, that lack of survivability is the problem with Sauron's Will. And they are not going to have the staying power to lay down a lot of their AP damage against the Mithril Guard here. Again, I know that I'm sure the attackers are very wary of that skirmish line, because it's got a perfect angle as well, but you have enough numbers to tank it. I mean, as the attackers, you can't afford to worry about casualties. And amazingly, the catapult is actually harming the attackers' efforts here, because they have actually placed it in such a position that this is going to become an issue. They're going to get in the way of some units advancing, so you can see this is what happens. Artillery in Medieval 2 has never really been ideal for this sort of thing. But you can see they're unable to make it through that gap, and that means these guys will probably never make it to the fight. They will probably always be there forever. See, these Gamprim are moving forward through the tunnel. Again, I think Gamprim are similar to Southron Pikemen in the fact they are AP pikes. But, you know, they're out of formation, so they're going to get butchered pretty quickly by Mithril Guard and Sons of Argonath. As we move past the 50,000 frame mark, with 23,000 remaining. How are these Sons of Argonath going to perform here? Slicing through a Sauron's Will. Using his great club there, trying to sort of bonk one of them on the head. There's a Thala Ranger still firing, trying to get some damage done. Again, based on the nature of the fight, I am also going to turn it back up to ×2 speed, I think. Simply because when something really happens, when someone commits to some sort of move, we'll move back down to ×1 speed. We can see that these pikes, when they're out of formation, the dwarves just able to push through them, and with the support of the slightly more damaging damage-focused Sons of Argonath, things are going to go relatively well here for the defenders. They do need to be careful not to overextend themselves too much. They can't afford to charge into the welcoming arms of the attackers in their entirety, and we are actually back to the tunnel fight. So the attackers, they kind of missed the chance to push through the tunnel. Wary of the crossbows, they avoided it. And that does mean, of course, that we're still in this fight. The crossbows are still firing in, though. The Thala Rangers coming forward. The Mithril Guard do need to be careful, because there are javelins back here. Javelins that are firing. We've got a very depleted unit of dismounted elves coming forward to try and help out. Help where they can. But again, these pikes are out of formation, and they are getting just bulldozed out of the way by the elite dwarves. And the Sons of Argonath following in just behind. This is the definition of a grind. What is that over there? They've still got some Narim. They've still got some Southern Archers. They've got some Hashari Shadows as well, which I missed in the composition. Hashari Shadows could potentially be a very interesting unit to see work, because they have the same melee stats as regular Hashari. Meanwhile, over here they are trying to fire into the Dwarven crossbows. Ultimately, if you don't kill all of them, though, it's a bit of a futile gesture, because they will still have all of that juicy crossbow ammunition. And then here we can see the Gamprim doing their best. But ultimately, the Sons of Argonath and the Mithril Guard are starting to burn out at this point. Will this move have been worth it in the end? I'm not sure. Some Carmel's Shadow Guard back there. Another potentially very potent unit against both the Dwarves and Gondor, and Dale technically, but Dale don't have too much of their army remaining. They've got units of like 4 and 3 here and there. Here come the Shadow Guard with their AP. Should be very useful in this fight. The Sons of Argonath still able to form the real backbone of this defence, however. Those catapults in the background are proving to be a real pain in the ass. The Temple Inquisitors are coming forward. The Temple Inquisitors will definitely be enough to turn this fight around. Sons of Argonath are winded. Temple Inquisitors, of course, in terms of a single unit, will be the strongest one on the field, I believe, at least in terms of 1 versus 1 units. Still got those Dragon Slayers at the back as well, the Hashari Shadows, very strong infantry unit, and ultimately these Sons of Argonath are now being aggressively pushed against, it would seem. Having said that, the Temple Inquisitors still just at arm's length. The Hashari Shadows coming forward though, and the Sons of Argonath, their position has ultimately been overrun, and I think they are trying to run away. Which is wise, having a few more units for the later game. And the Dwarven defensive line has reformed itself. The lack of any sort of attacking artillery at this point.
Made of clay. We are winning the battle.
The lack of any form of attacking artillery at this point is going to be a bit of a problem for the attackers. It does mean they're going to have to go up against the Dwarven defensive line again, but not quite as thick and powerful as it once was. The Hashari Shadows going to try and deal with what's left of this unit of Sons of Argonath. They're going to be able to do that as well. The Hashari Shadows are a very good melee unit. And then we have these Dwarven units over here waiting with their crossbows. The Khazad-dûm Reclaimers as well are also going to be a very potent tool for dealing damage in a ranged capacity. Go back up over here to ×2 speed. Unfortunately for the defenders, the attackers do have their javelins. The Muhar tribesmen going to try and do damage. Again, the dwarves are tanky enough that they can take it better than most, but they are still going to take damage. And a few more kills. Again, I would recommend these winged swordsmen stay back a little bit so they don't get hit by the javelin fire. The winged swordsmen and the Wardens of the White Tower coming forward to bulk out this defensive line a bit. And there goes the crossbow fire, destroying that unit of Muhar tribesmen. The Blacklock Engineers are also reloading. And those Sons of Argonath, who actually, the Gondorian winged swordsmen have gone forward a little bit too far, I think. I don't know whether they were intending to try and save their Sons of Argonath, but it was far too late for them. There's also these Dale Dragon Slayers over here, reloading. What's that coming down? We've got some Variag Warriors. So Khan sending forward their sort of middling shock units. Again, they aren't AP, so they're not going to stand much of a chance here, but again, it's going to be a matter of attrition once more. Let's see here. Let's go to ×2 speed until the melee engagement fully starts. Because the attackers seem to have an aversion to sending their men forward, but honestly, you're going to be feeding kills to the enemy no matter what. You're either going to be taking tons of damage from the crossbows, or you're going to be losing individual units and receiving no kills if you send them up against stuff like Guards of Khazad-dûm. So really, it doesn't really matter how you approach it in terms of that. If you push forward with more men, without the catapult here, it's probably the way to go. You can see there is another unit of Gamp Grim being sent forward by Skinny. And again, you can see the guards of Khazad-dûm. This is one of the problems with the dwarves. It's kind of annoying to see the dwarves push away from the secondary line you've set up. But with the help of the Wardens of the White Tower and the Gondorian Winged Swordsman, things should be alright. Even with something like the Hashari Shadows here trying to attack the Winged Swordsman. And there are these Gamp Grim. So I'm interested to see what the attackers actually have left. So we've got another unit of Variag warriors coming forward. We've got the Loke Flag Rim. We've got the Temple Inquisitors. We've got the Carmel's Chosen, a lot of the elites. The Demons of the Desert as well. The Demons of the Desert all by themselves might be too much for the defenders to deal with. Simply because if it comes down to just the Demons of the Desert against the Dragon Slayers, a single volley from them is going to be able to carve the unit down to the point where they're going to be able to deal with them in melee. The Runic Pikes, the backbone of the Runic army at the moment, trying to push forwards. The catapults are proving to be a bit of an obstacle for the attackers at the moment. What are the guards of Khazad-dûm doing? There's only 11 of them left. Again, pushing forwards into that line was not really too recommended. The Hashari Shadows were there, and they did a lot of damage. So it's going to be up to the Wardens of the White Tower to really form the centre of the defence at this point, unless the Dragon Slayers of Ered Mithrin come down. There are these Sons of the Fallen here as well, but they've taken quite a few losses. Defeat seems to be certain. Again, let's go up to ×2 speed. It has been quite an odd fight, but it could yet be quite close, depending on how this works out in the end. I mean, it's 85% to 85%. I mean, that still tends to come down in favour of the attackers in the end when it's this even at this point. Defeat seems certain for the Temple Inquisitors. That's interesting. Sons of the Fallen and the Wardens of the White Tower. The Variag Warriors and the Loke Flag Rim are coming forward to help out the Temple Inquisitors, however. Which is probably going to lead to these Wardens of the White Tower falling away pretty quickly. The added AP of those Flag Rim in particular is going to be pretty difficult for them to stand up against. I mean, they're a very, very strong unit, and I think they realise they've overextended themselves here, and they're going to fall back. They need to fall back. The Winged Swordsmen need to fall back as well. They can't afford to go in on their own. They're going to, though. They're going to charge in, and they're going to regret it very quickly. They haven't really used the Dwarven Pikes as a sort of buffer enough, I don't think. I think they've allowed their infantry to push out too easily. The Khazad-dûm Reclaimers are coming forward. They could yet do a lot of damage, and they are, of course, a very strong melee unit as well. Doubtless to say they will be, well, needless to say, they are going to be in the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm next patch. At the moment they are idle. Again, very odd choice of defensive tactics here. They retreated their Wardens of the White Tower behind the pikes, but they didn't do the same for their Winged Swordsmen. And again, every unit counts if you're a defender, because they're just going to get cut to pieces by the units that are amassed against them. So again, very odd tactics there, very odd decision by Jar Jar. And again, Abaus is doing the same here with his Dale Dragon Slayers. They still have ammunition, so I don't know what they're doing here. Well, regardless, they have been engaged in melee now, so a waste of Dale Dragonslayer ammunition here. And there are the Ironfoot crossbows, the Wardens of the White Tower coming back forwards again with the help of the crossbows that are out of ammunition. Amazingly, victory still seems certain for the Loke Flag Rim. And I think the defenders are going to start to run out of steam here. These pikes need to be pushed forward to help out the line. They've not done that enough. If the line's getting away from you, you need to push forward the pikes to help out. Especially against something like Variag Warriors. Could be key. Balance of forces is evenly matched at this point. Again, there are Temple Inquisitors in here somewhere though. Where are we? There we are. They have taken some losses already, but even so. Now the Olag High come forward, which is it's a pretty good time to use them, to be honest. Push forward into those skirmishes. Make life a little bit more uncomfortable for the defenders. I mean, they're immediately coming under range fire, but honestly, Olag High are not really the most potent thing. Like, they should be going after the Temple Inquisitors already with their ranged units, and the Olag High are still going to be able to get some amount of damage done on the units that are here. Trolls are able to do a good amount of damage even if they do die pretty quickly. The continuing fire of crossbow bolts comes down on the defensive, well, the attacking line, I should say. Ironfoot crossbows. Surprisingly decent melee unit. Again, as you would expect from the dwarves, mainly because of their armour. Like, they're just able to withstand. Again, these pikes need to be sent in, because as soon as this infantry support is gone, the pikes will be next to useless, because they'll just be pushed out the way. Even dwarven pikes. Now there's another unit of Loke Flagrim coming on, so there's no rest for the wicked. Flagrim. There's only one Olag High left, so they died very quickly, of course. Here comes the Flagrim. Maces and axes in hand. What are the percentages looking like now? Yeah, so the percentages of allies, so the attackers have lost 88%, the defenders have lost 89%. And ultimately, we've yet to see the Khandish elite infantry. We've yet to see the demons of the desert. Those are the two things, really. And the Balchoth Sapphire Bladesmen. I don't think the defenders are going to have too many answers for that. That middle section, though, where they were really showing the attackers what for. Oh, hello. We've got Nazgul coming forward. That was impressive, but ultimately, I think when everyone realised that this rock was not actually going to stop any sort of projectiles, that kind of changed the dynamic of the defence entirely. Which is a bit of a shame, because if that rock was solid, I think that Glowbox probably would have carried his team to victory here. Because that is a brutal area to try and advance through, as on lower unit scaling anyway. On higher unit scaling, they probably still would have struggled pretty immensely. But yeah, the Dwarven elites have definitely acquitted themselves very well here. The Wardens of the White Tower, victory seems certain, but they are still alive, and the Temple Inquisitors have ultimately fallen by the wayside, it would seem. Only 15 of them remaining. A combination of crossbow for... oh, hello. I recognise that. That's the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. No wonder they're taking losses. A perfect angle to throw their axes. And now they are... are they going to?
The accursed enemy has slain our ally.
Axe throwers are so lethal.
Soldiers for victory now.
On an unrelated note, I was going to try and make a D&D character that was based around throwing axes. And the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. The strongest axe throwers in the game at the moment. I think they will still be the strongest axe throwers in the next patch as well. I think Rudauer are the only other faction getting axe throwers, and they're sort of slightly worse than the dwarves. Well, in terms of their thrown projectiles anyway. Foradrim javelins are still going to be very lethal. I'm excited for Rudauer. I want to use them. I get the feeling the amount of damage they can deal is going to be really nasty if you use them correctly. But as I've said, you know, the first two overviews I'm going to be doing will be the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm first, and then the Elves of Imladra second, and then I'll do two evil factions. Whenever I release the first one of those, I'll be putting another straw poll in with just the evil factions, and again, the top two will be the first two evil factions that I do. And that's how we're going to be doing it. I was surprised the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm won that, actually. Unless Bobo created several IPs and he just voted for them 10 times. But yes, I mean, it is one of the new factions, but of the new factions, I was expecting Linden to be the one that people wanted to see the most. But hey, I'm excited for the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm as well. And then we have the Wardens of the White Tower still fighting amazingly. I mean, we have the Nazgul in here now, which, again, that's slowly going to bleed what's left of the defensive forces over here down. And we are actually approaching the final 10,000 frames, so this is it, the final straight of the battle. And we can see here that, again, it's only a 2% gap. The defenders could still turn this around, and I stress could, because I do still think that the Balchoth Sapphire Bladesmen and Demons of the Desert are going to be too much.
Sense their doom upon them.
Oh, The Gondorian general is gone. The Wardens of the White Tower, again, these pikes haven't pushed forward to help out their brethren. So again, we'll go up to ×2 speed once more. Oh, hello. Ooh. The Blacklock Engineers and the crossbows targeting the Carmel's Chosen ruthlessly. And the Brotherhood of the Sword are also coming forward. Carmel's Chosen, of course, are AP, so they are the one more worth going after than the Brotherhood of the Sword. Because the shields are not really going to help them too much. Here come the Brotherhood of the Sword again. All the Brotherhood units have been given a new lick of paint as well. So this will be the final time that we see the old unit model for them. Once upon a time they were a part of Rune. Back in, I think, 0.86. 0.86 when Rune was ungodly powerful, as well as Rohan. How things have changed around. The era of Gundabad and the Woodland Realms being shunned for being OP is about to come to an end, I think. It'll be nice to be able to play the Elves of Mirkwood, because I do like their style, without people looking at you like you're trash because you picked the OP faction. And admittedly, playing against the Woodland Realms was awful in this current patch. No matter where you were on the map, they would find you. And they would shoot you to death. Oh, hello. The Demons of the Desert have been committed forward. That's interesting, because the Demons of the Desert are going to take a huge amount of ranged fire here. I mean, they are trying to counterfire into the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm, but with the help of the Ironfoot crossbows, the Demons of the Desert may well be cut down to size here. And this was one of the weapons that made me think the attackers were probably going to win this. You can see the axes coming in, dealing damage. The Sapphire Bladesmen are still present, of course, and again, really the only thing that the defenders have other than these units here are the Dragon Slayers, and the Dragon Slayers are not going to be able to beat 2 units of Brotherhood of the Axe and a unit of Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen. There's still a lot of blue on the radar. Still only a 2% gap. The pikes are now finally being sort of tested in melee, but ultimately it's 2 units of Ironfoot pikes combined with a unit of Ironfoot crossbows, which is holding them back now. And the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers are retreating, unless there are sort of hidden units that I haven't noticed as of yet. I don't think so. Dismounted Earls, Dragon Slayers, that's it. Here come the Brotherhood of the Axe as well. Some more AP damage. Khan's elites have reared their ugly heads. Well, they're not ugly at all. The Brotherhood units have always looked pretty nice. And a unit of clan crossbows as well. I mean, the Blacklock Engineers with their multiple HP are probably the only thing that's holding this line together at this point. So yeah, I would suggest that the attackers are going to win in true 0.91 fashion, which means, of course, the evil attackers have won, so this video is going to get downvoted more than any other. Because people don't like it when the attackers win, even less when it's the evil factions that win. But this was still a rather interesting match to behold. You know, the first phase of Minas Tirith is usually the one that takes all the time, but this time it was very quick. And this sort of middle phase here, where the most of the battle has taken place here in this little section, we'll move up to ×2 speed, I think. As again, it's mostly elite forces.
The enemy force remains. We must pray they lose their will to fight.
Half the dwarves? They've still got half their army left. I find that somewhat hard to believe. Although I do think that I'm missing something. Am I like blind and there's like dudes somewhere that I just can't see? Do the dwarves even have units that they can hide? I don't think so. Maybe they do though, I don't know. But I doubt it's half their army remaining. Surely they've lost more than half at this point. Balchoth Sapphire Bladesman coming forward as well. What am I doing turning up to ×6? ×2 is what I wanted. We can see the Carmel's Chosen. They were able to weather that initial onslaught that they took. And now the Dwarven defensive line is buckling. And we will have the final stand in the town centre, which is probably not going to take too long based on the amount of frames we have left relative to the amount of frames that have passed. Yeah, signing off 0.91 on Minas Tirith seemed like the thing to do, and someone did send me one, and of course a long Minas Tirith battle is often well received. So while 0.91 wasn't many people's like favourite, shall we say, you know, it has still been what Reforged has based itself upon for quite some time now. And this will be the last that you see of it from me. The rest, if I do show replays before the before the patch releases, it will be from the test patch. Hey look, there's the Innis Rim. Hopefully I'll be able to play in one. I mean, hopefully myself and J-Monster can do a couple of 1v1s. That'd be nice. And again, that would, maybe he would show them as well. Like, it's not necessarily me that will be showing stuff from the test patch. Like, again, I would fully urge you to sort of check out the official Reforged channel, and of course the J-Monster's channel, because there will be stuff on there as well. J-Monster has posted a series of 1v1s involving the new factions and factions that have been tweaked. So definitely go ahead and check those out, because this will be the last of 0.9. What's this? We've got another unit of Nurad assassins. We do. The elite rice farmers are upon us once more. Let's go to times 6 speed, because this is going to be it. The final stand, just Dragon Slayers and Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. And again, yeah, very quickly the percentages have gone against the defenders. What are these guys doing? The Dragon Slayers. It stands to reason that Rune would want the Dragon Slayers dead. I mean, they'd need to be careful, because they can very easily be circumvented entirely here. Come forth, attackers. Ah, the Nurad assassins are being sent forward first. That's a good choice, actually. Their lack of armour makes the Dragon Slayers, they're not going to be able to lay down their full capabilities on the assassins. The assassins won't win, of course. Now here come the Demons of the Desert firing in against the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. Oh, and there were Dragon's Wrath crossbows. They were just hidden all this time. I mean, it will be quite the ending if we see the fiery balls of death here at the end. Come on. For old time's sake in 0.91, no, they pulled out their swords. Of course they have. Fire! This is what the Dragon's Wrath crossbows are about. Frustrating me. Also, they're not using the fireballs anyway. I think they were using the splinter shot. How long can the Dragon Slayers hold out for against Carmel's Chosen, Brotherhood of the Sword and Brotherhood of the Axe, and Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen, and Demons of the Desert, and Dragon's Wrath crossbows, and now Flagrim coming up? This is going to be the end. Obviously, we know how long they're going to be able to hold out for, because we can see the amount of frames left, and it's 3,000 frames, which is not too shabby at all, particularly if they're going to be taking javelins in the back.
Victory is well within our grasp. In time, our foe will surely see this and lose heart.
Indeed. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers trying to engage the Demons of the Desert in melee. The Dragon Slayers. Defeat is almost a certainty. Indeed. There are two dismounted elves up there.
In time, our foe will...
Oh, the Nazgul killed Dane. Well, that seems quite fitting. Well, that seems rather unnecessary, all things considered.
Pray our warriors' hearts fill with
Well,
thirst for vengeance.
Oh.
And curses, our men no longer command the city.
What a strange end. But yes, the Haradrim general killed by the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers. Well, there's Brotherhood of the Axe.
Our men have taken control of the city. Curses, our men no longer command the city.
Madness. Dragon Slayers of Ered Mithrin. Only 9 of them remaining now, and with them dies the fight. one would presume. But there are still those 2 Earls up there. They're going to be fighting off against Nurad assassins as well.
Them from the field.
And that's going to be it.
Have curses. Our men no longer command the city.
Unless there's still like units somewhere in a place unknown. Yeah, that's going to be it. I mean, there's still some sort of fighting going on down here. There's still 3 Dragon Slayers. It's fighting off against the Flag Rim. The Banner Carrier. Looks like the Brotherhood of the Axe are going to get the honours of the last kills of 0.91 that I show. Oh, there they go. There's the Dragon's Wrath crossbows. They did it. They managed to get one more volley of fiery death out for the 0.91. I think they still have that ability in the next patch. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but I think they do. I mean, the Witches still exist, so it stands to reason that it's still going to be a mechanic that exists in the game, as there's some smouldering embers down there of what remains of some of the Dragon Slayers. So the Dragon's Wrath crossbows, signing off on a winning note. That's something worth celebrating.
But only by a sword's edge. This battle may have been any
Well, that was a very strange one, wasn't it? Obviously, the amount of kills are lower because it was on smaller unit scaling. And I think, yeah, R9 Z10 was the one who sent me this, so we will see his kills. And, of course, one of the units of Trollmen, I think, is going to be his most effective unit. So, yeah, obviously, the initial unit that he used. So, yeah, an interesting sort of way to sign off 0.91, quite unorthodox to what the patch has been about previously. But, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next, which, regardless of what it will be based upon the new patch and the new mechanics.